This is the Vet Voice podcast by Veterans for America First. My name is Jerry Craig. I'm the host of the podcast, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Amanda Orlando, who's the campaign manager for the Diehl Allen campaign for the state of Massachusetts. And welcome to the podcast. I want to first say congratulations on winning the primary election and getting to the general election. And what I want to do is bring attention to the campaign. Our job here is to give you the most airtime, to reach the most number of people to know who they're voting for and why. So Amanda, could you please share some of Geoff's background and maybe his platform?
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on. So Geoff Diehl is a former state representative in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He served as a state representative from 2011 to 2019, elected in 2010 and sworn in 11 and served for 8 years. He also ran in 2018 against sitting United States Senator Elizabeth Warren. So he is not a person who shies away from taking on a fight. And he does so very, very successfully. He won 4 terms in a row as a state representative. He took on the incumbent senator, and Elizabeth Warren, as we know, she is a well-known name in national politics, and she is not shy to put her opinions out there. And Geoff, he battled really hard in that race, and it was really a proud moment for Republicans to have someone like him as principled and as full of integrity to run against Elizabeth Warren, who really never had an interest in representing the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I think she was always looking for her next stepping stone for herself and for her own career. Geoff went to Lehigh University and ended up after college working in Manhattan, where he met his wife on a blind date, and they were married a year later. And she is from Massachusetts originally. Her family is from Whitman, Massachusetts. And so after they married, they moved to Whitman, and they've lived there ever since. And they've been married for 26 years. And Kathy Jo, his wife, and he own a small business together. It's a performing arts studio. It's in Hanson, Massachusetts, which is the next door town to Whitman. And they have 2 daughters. They just live this wonderful regular life, and he is so willing to serve people, and I'm really proud to have been chosen to be his campaign manager, because he's a person that that all of us can easily support, but I've always supported. So it's a little bit about his background. As far as the campaign goes, Geoff decided to run for governor when I think really it was the period of time in which Massachusetts was dealing with the pandemic, and he felt at the time that there were a lot of things he would have done differently had he been the one to make the decisions. For example, their small business, a performing arts studio, was shut down, and they were waiting for it to reopen, and it was a very arbitrary schedule for when it would reopen, and it was difficult for them. They had put their life savings into that business. They've run it for 20 years, and then it was simply closed with no idea how they were going to reopen it, keep employees. It was a challenge. So that was the first thing. Second thing is he has 2 daughters. They were both in high school at the time, and they were out of school and not even having to learn remotely. And that was really hard for them to watch, for him to watch. And he felt like a lot of young people were really put on the back burner during that time, and their needs, both academic and emotional, were not prioritized. And so I think that was really what spurred him to say, I can do this. And this is something that the people of Massachusetts really need: different leadership. We need to have somebody who cares about individual freedoms, that we're not just, in government to go along to get along. And his background really is that he is not a go along to get along guy. He's a very proud Republican, but he would fight with Republican leadership just as much as he would fight with Democrat leadership on Beacon Hill, because he felt like, we're not here to just go along to get along. We're here to represent people. Back in 2014, when the Massachusetts legislature passed a gas tax that was tied to inflation, and it would go up and up and up into infinity without even a vote of the legislature. And Geoff said, well, this is wrong. I mean, this is taxation without representation, and it's a huge slippery slope. I mean, we're going to be paying huge gas prices if we tie it to inflation. Of course, he must have been looking in a crystal ball, because right now with inflation as high as it is, can you imagine what our gas prices would be? But his leadership on the Republican side told him, don't bother, you'll never win this battle. And the Democrats, of course, said, no, we need the gas tax. So Geoff took it to the people back in 2014, and he led the repeal of the gas tax indexing. He called it the gas tax, and it won. It actually, and he was outspent, he was outgunned, and he still won because it was the right issue. And he is never willing to just go along to get along. And so I think when he was experiencing the pandemic and watching his family and his business go through hardships, he said, well, I can do this. I can do this better. And I'm going to run for governor. And that's when he decided to do that. So he announced his campaign for governor in July of 2021. And we've been running ever since. So we're in the home stretch now, but it's been a great ride.
Well, it takes a lot of work, and it sounds like he has a history in public service, working at various levels. And I think the governor's race is one where we can't really afford on-the-job training for governor's races and some others. There's a lot of us coming from the grassroots and coming from the sidelines, jumping into politics because of what happened in the last couple of years. I don't look forward. When he gets into the governor's office, what is his first priority?
So his first priority is he's going to hire back all state workers who were let go from their jobs due to, in Massachusetts, we had a great number of state workers who we lost. And right now, our state agencies and public employee sectors are lacking membership and employees, because a lot of people left when they were faced with them that they didn't agree with. So he has said over and over again, on day one, he will rehire every state worker who lost their job because of it. And on day two, he will let go of anyone in the administration who thought that was a good idea. And he will replace them with people who will honor individual freedom. And
Now,
his opponent is currently the Attorney General.
And is he familiar with her policies and her backgrounds? What's the biggest criticism of her in the event she becomes governor?
So she is a big government, tax and spend, extremely progressive individual. She has been the Attorney General in Massachusetts for 8 years. Her big legacy is that she sued the Trump administration, I think something like 100 times in the last 8 years. She went after Second Amendment rights in Massachusetts and succeeded in making more regulations and more rules that took away people's legal rights to keep and bear arms. She in fact, Smith & Wesson, which is a company in Massachusetts that has been here for over 100 years, because she put so many regulations on the Second Amendment issue, they have moved. They're leaving Massachusetts and they're going to Tennessee. So she is extremely progressive. She has prioritized social issues over really what's best for the average working family in Massachusetts. She's not worried about that. She supports, this year in November, we're going to be voting on some ballot questions. The first one is a tax. She supports the increased tax. Question 4 is to give driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. She supports doing that. So she is extremely progressive. There is a great contrast between our two campaigns.
And does she support defunding the police?
She does. So during the riots of 2020, in Boston, downtown Boston on Newbury Street, there was looting, there was violence, the police were outnumbered, and they were having frozen bottles of urine thrown at them. I mean, it was awful. Properties were destroyed, people were hurt, officers were hurt. She said nothing. And then when she was asked about it at a Chamber of Commerce event, and it's on film, we have it, she said, well, yes, America is burning, but that's how forests grow. She never had the backs of the police officers. She never defended them. And she's supposedly the top law enforcement executive in our state. And she just never worried about what was happening to police during that horrible stretch of time in our country and in Massachusetts.
With her being the attorney general, has anyone filed anything against her? Writ of mandamus, dereliction of duty style action for her picking and choosing of which laws she wants to enforce and moving on the social issues over the safety and um, function of the citizenry.
Well, I'm not sure whether anybody has. I think in Massachusetts, often politicians like Maura Healey don't get called on the carpet in other ways because we are such a one-sided state politically. So the legislature and the up on Beacon Hill is so blue that it's difficult for people to get heard from their representatives on those types of issues. So a lot of people give up. And that's really one of the reasons, again, that Geoff wanted to run, because we felt very strongly that the people here in Massachusetts needed a voice and a check and balance on a very one-sided legislature. That there are a lot of people in this state who feel like they can't be heard from any of their representatives. And the governor's office is like the last stand that we have. Traditionally in Massachusetts, we elect Republican governors, even though it's a very blue state. And even though our legislature is very blue, we more often than not will elect a Republican governor. And it's because people like to see that balance.
That makes sense. And the current governor is Charlie Baker, correct?
Correct.
And he's not running, and he's a Republican.
That's correct.
And how does Geoff's polls look right now? Is he looking good? How would you characterize the trajectory?
So back in 2010, Massachusetts elected Scott Brown to be our United States Senator. He took the seat of the then deceased Senator Ted Kennedy. And it was a hard fought race. In fact, he ran for that seat against the sitting Attorney General, Martha Coakley. And in that race, a lot of people said Scott Brown did not have a chance. Martha Coakley had more money. She was polling way ahead. And Scott Brown won that race in the last 2 weeks.
I remember that.
In 2014, Charlie Baker ran for the governorship against the then Attorney General, Martha Coakley. And they both ran for an open seat. And Charlie's polls narrowed in the last 2 weeks, and he won that election. That is the same trajectory we are on in this race. We are polling exactly where Charlie Baker was in 2014. We are running against the sitting Attorney General. And anybody who opines on the race says, oh, Maura Healey, she's going to win. She's way ahead. And they said the same thing about Martha Coakley both times. And they actually said the same thing in 2016 during the presidential election. And we all know how that turned out. So we're feeling very confident. We actually recently had a poll through Emerson College showing that we are winning amongst independents in Massachusetts. And that is the biggest voting bloc that exists. The two-party system here is actually far less registered Republicans and Democrats than there are unenrolled. So we are feeling extremely positive. We're trending in the right direction, and every day we get more and more support. So we're very excited.
Well, that's good. The independent voter in Massachusetts is the target. That is the focus audience. And I've said this to many, many candidates and many different places, that the people who would historically vote Democratic or in the Democrat side of things are abandoned by the hard left radical liberal agenda, and they can't support that. They're left hanging. So I'm seeing a lot of people rethinking their thought process and giving the Republican ticket a second look. So now, if people want to know more about Geoff's campaign and possibly volunteer, donate money, or to assist in any one way, how would they go about doing that?
So if the best place to look is on our website, which is www.diehallen.com. Geoff Diehl and Leah Allen. So it's diehallen.com, DIEHLALLEN.com. Our website has a link to donate. It has a store in case you want to sport some Diehl or Allen merchandise. We have our blueprint for the Bay State, which is our policy document, which has our plans for what we're going to do for the Commonwealth starting on day one as soon as we're elected. We have a lot of great information, videos. You can listen to Geoff. You can read more about Geoff and Leah. We are a very dynamic campaign. We have a lot of energy behind us, and every day we ask for more volunteers and we get them. Right now, we're looking for people who are willing to assist with get out the vote phone calls, sign standouts, literature drops, and then of course working on election day to assure that rules are followed and that we are, securing our vote and making sure our folks get out to vote. Because that's the biggest thing, right? You can have all the signs in the world. You need people to come out and vote. So as many people as want to join, we would appreciate, and any amount you can donate, we would appreciate and we'll put to good use.
Well, at this point, the endorsements that matter are each individual voter's endorsement. And we are proud to endorse Geoff Diehl in his race for governor of Massachusetts. And we look forward to having him win on November 8th and possibly having him on the show to celebrate his win. So we look forward to
We would
having him
love
there,
that.
and we'll be in touch. So please keep me posted with the updates, and I look forward to round 2.
Will do. And thank you all for your endorsement and your support. It means the world to us. Veterans issues have always been very near and dear to Geoff's heart, and he will serve our veterans faithfully as governor. So we really appreciate your help, your support, and thanks for having me on today as well.
Well, you have a good day. Always a pleasure.
You as well. Thank you.